Hello, welcome back to Geek Warning, the cycling tech-focused podcast from Escape Collective. I'm Dave Rome, and joining me this week, once again, Ronan McLaughlin. How you doing?
Cold. Winter has arrived.
You're sitting there in a beanie and a jacket. You don't have heating?
2 jackets and a hoodie, and a base layer underneath a t-shirt and a body warmer over the top of it. It's
Wow.
6 degrees in my workshop. My workshop somehow lags 2 days behind the outside temperature. So when it's cold outside, 2 days later, inside my garage will get cold. And then it'll be cold for 2 days after it warms up outside. I think I over-insulated it.
Yeah, okay. Wow, okay. But no actual heater to increase the heat once it is cold.
2 non-functional radiators.
Perfect.
Yeah, nice. Just a reminder that you could be warmer, but no, you're not.
Okay. May I recommend testing 20 plus electric inflators right now?
May I heat off those? I'm just gonna electrically inflate my feet.
Yeah. You might be the prime candidate for a jacket I every winter get tempted to buy and never do because it's just not cold enough in Sydney to justify it. But Milwaukee and a few other tool brands make heated jackets that use their line of batteries.
They're actual. Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in the DeWalt and the Parkside battery line, so I don't know if either of those brands. Surely Lidl, whatever they're called, offer a heated jacket that functions with their power tools battery. It seems like the middle aisle.
I hope it's made of a non-flammable material.
I'm sure it's not.
Anyway, one to look into, but very good. Well, yeah, another week of tech, another few new products.
Big week.
Yeah, it's been quite the week. A few new big products have come out, well, at least one big product, and a few other smaller pieces. Got a few things on our mind. Of course, we have a PSA. And to wrap things up, I caught up with Zach Edwards of the Boulder Gruppetto and answered a few member questions. So we'll have that for members of Escape Collective at the end of the episode.
Which reminds me, we have a little bit of a corrections corner from last week's Ask the Mechanic. Not actually a correction, just you guys missed the glaringly obvious thing.
Go on.
When we were talking about cleat wedges and insole wedges and the difference between them.
This will make no sense for non-members tuning in because they don't get part of the episode. But let's have it anyway.
That's one of the side effects of being a non-member. So sorry about that. You can correct that by going to escapecollective.com and joining today to get the entire episode. But in the meantime, the question was, what are there any differences? And we mentioned everything bar the fact that one just addresses an angle in the forefoot and the other angles the entire shoe. Which is a pretty big difference. Thanks to someone on the Discord who had pointed that out.
Right. Yeah, I had Nick Scolari, who's a Australian bike racer and occasional media mogul, and also a shoe extraordinaire, reach out and say that same thing to me. So, yes, we did. Point taken.
Well, I did. I answered the question. So.
Yes, very, very important. So anyway, but listen back to last week's Ask a Rank section to understand.
I think I was drunk on sugar from those 2 big iced cream buns that I was eating at the time.
just got too excited. All right. Well, let's get into the big news of the week. Campagnolo is back in the headlines, and deservedly so, dare I say. And they've expanded out the Super Record range. So earlier this year in June, you wrote about this one, Ronan, where they had... Well, I'll let you explain it. What did they release in June?
A new Super Record wireless 13-speed road group set, 2x13. And that was sort of updating, let's say, what they had released 2 years ago with the Super Record wireless 12-speed, bringing back the thumb shifter, few other changes, and then obviously adding in an extra cog into the cassette, which obviously necessitates a few other updates along with that to the derailleur net. Things like the removable front and rear derailleur specific batteries were retained, but it was kind of pretty obvious then, not least from spy shot, well, not spy shots. Gravel riders were riding a gravel version of this group set at the same time as Campag were announcing the road version. Yep. And so it was clear that there was more to come from that launch.
Yep. So yeah, we've got a story up on Escape Collective now about this new launch. But yeah, basically they've done something very familiar as far as if you followed the trajectory of SRAM Red, dare I say. They updated with SRAM Red 2x on the road, and then a month or so later, or a little bit later, they had the Explore group, the Gravel group, which is a 1x specific. And it's a very similar story here. So yeah, Campagnolo has released a whole range of 1x options. So there's now a total of 3 rear derailleurs in the range of the Super Record range. There's the original road 2x derailleur, and then there's a new derailleur which has the same cage length but adds a clutch, which is intended for like either 2x or 1x road use, with a bit more chain retention. And then there's also a new longer cage derailleur that they're calling Super Record X, which is designed largely for gravel or sort of wide range cassettes. Yeah, and that's a 1x specific derailleur, which is able to use with like their 9 to 42 tooth cassette or a 10 to 48 tooth cassette. So quite a bit there. But yeah, I think where to begin with that one? Should we talk about the road or the gravel?
I think the road is the more minor of the two updates. So perhaps we could get that one we could cover that one quickly and get onto the gravel.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I mean the road, basically no new cassettes. It's just a derailleur with a clutch. So it's they've got new aero chain rings to match with that. I think up to 52 tooth. Yep, 52. Yeah, you can still get their new power meter. Very familiar features, reusing the same shift levers and brakes that were introduced in June. So again, similar to what we saw with SRAM. We saw the shifters and the brakes come out, and then that is sort of the consistent item throughout all the various options. So yeah, Ron, you mentioned to me that you found it peculiar that Campagnolo even bother with a new shifter release or non-shifter that they've released.
Yeah, not so I have the Super Record Wireless 13 Road 2x on 2 bikes here at the moment. Campag sent a bike for review of the group set, and then that Wildeer that I reviewed, and the review of which is on the website now. That came with Super Record 13 also. And I want to say, first of all, Campag now have the best shifters that are available on the market. Hands down, not a doubt. Wow. I like the new SRAM. The Campag stuff is just simply better. Much more comfortable in my hands. And yeah, just on there. Also the fact that they have, like, where SRAM added the magic button or the extra button or whatever it's called, Campag have like 4 buttons put into their levers. So there's extra options. So in terms of comfort and usability, configurations that you can adjust yourself and all that, yeah, the levers are now my new favorite. And as we mentioned last week, if you could take various elements from different group sets and make your ideal one, I'd be taking those levers.
Wow. Okay.
But as part of this new 1x group set that they've announced, or these couple of new 1x group sets they've announced, they are introducing effectively like a dummy left lever that removes the electronics inside for shifting, removes the shift levers. It's basically just a brake lever. And I don't get the point of that. Didn't Shimano do the same recently? I just don't get it.
Shimano has done the exact same with GRX, where you can just buy like a what's effectively just a brake lever with no shift function. They do it largely to save cost. So like OE, like a bike brand could spec this lever, save some dollars. And it's a 1x drivetrain, so the person buying the bike might never miss not having that shifter. The other thing on this, in the case of Campagnolo, they say it saves about 20 grams. Not really that significant.
Okay, so we're taking an 8, 9, 10 kilo bike. It's a gravel bike. It's not going to be super lightweight. And we're taking a bike that has Super Record spec on it. And we're saving 20 grams and, I don't know, $20? Come on.
Yeah.
My point is more like, first of all, you lose the configuration. When you've only got one lever, you're sort of more or less locked into the intended use case for each of those buttons. And one of the best things I've done to the new Campagnolo group set, even as a fan of the thumb shifter, is to set it up a la SRAM axis, where the left lever, we all know how that works, much more intuitive. But I then also set it up that the extra button sort of does the inverse of what the brake lever shifter button would do. And so if one is going down the cassette, the extra button is going up the cassette, so I can control both directions from one hand, which is useful for things like eating or basically when you've just got one hand in the bar and you need to change gear. But it's also like, if we're talking gravel group sets, as we are now with the new Campagnolo stuff, just having a lever control your derailleur in both directions on both sides means that you're not really at the mercy of running. Like if you have a battery issue with one lever out on a Badlands and you've still got 200k to go or something, you've got another lever there that controls all the functionality. Whereas you remove all that to save 20 grams. I can't believe we're talking about this for this long, but anyway, I just don't get the
but
the
with
dummy
that
levers.
20 gram saving, you would have already finished that extra 200 kilometers.
Maybe.
No, you're right. I've got a bike here with like brand new, new GRX with the new wireless derailleur, and that was thankfully spec'd with 2 operating shifters left and right. Both are equipped as shifters, and I too have configured them to, for the left shifter to actually do something. So again, very much like a SRAM sort of, one does up, one does down. So I agree with you. I too, if I was speccing a bike with Super Record, I would not be opting for the dummy shifter. I would be opting for the legitimate original operating left shifter. Yeah, so I think one of the more interesting things with the new road style 1x derailleur, which they're calling nano clutch, which refers to like the lightweight clutch in the derailleur, I think, is that you can use that derailleur in a 2x configuration. And Campagnolo basically saying this is like their new all-road configuration. So you could use just about any of their chainring configurations, but they're really recommending it for like the 50-34 or smaller. And the smallest, I think off the top of my head, is actually 45-29. Yes, I mean, this puts Campagnolo in a similar territory to like people wanting to buy a gravel bike, and there's not a huge amount of options there. I mean, yes, you can do it with SRAM, although SRAM's pushing everyone towards 1x in that space. Shimano does allow it GRX, but GRX is arguably like an Ultegra level. So Campagnolo's perhaps got one of the nicest options for those that want 2x, but on the gravel and want a wide range. And yeah, it looks like, you can match it up with like a 1136 cassette in the back and 45-29 chainrings. It's pretty good range.
For those quiver killers.
Yes. The magical unicorn.
For your Aspro review.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's exactly the sort of bike I'd be thinking of it for, though. Like, is a Seville Aspro or like an Open Up or something like that.
Yeah, I think for those who are maybe not regular listeners to the Geek Warning podcast, what we're hinting at there is that a bike that is your do it all rather than a dedicated gravel rig.
An off-road going road bike. Yes.
And that's kind of where, like, so I guess the big news on the roadside here is the 1x13. And I'm all for 1x on the road. I've done it many times for different races and that I've been targeting. But I'm not convinced by it as my like only option. And so I've got the Cervelo S5 at the moment with the SRAM Red Explorer. And while I can see the merits of that build, I think if I had that bike, I would be. It's almost like it needs to come with a front derailleur, which also would necessitate a new rear derailleur when you're using SRAM here, and another cassette, and you kind of constantly mixing and matching them, not mixing and matching, but swapping them back and forth depending on what type of ride or event or terrain that you're riding on. And I guess that's the benefit of this. The direction SRAM have taken here is that the 1x derailleur is 2x compatible, versus something like the Explorer full mount derailleur that is on this S5 is, you can't use that 2x. But like, I guess the point I'm making is like, well, it's a question for you actually. What do you think of 1x13 for the road. I'm like, yes, but you almost need to be like a pro level supported rider with a mechanic
Yeah.
to have the time and the finances to be able to have, unless it's just a unique situation based on the terrain that I ride most often. If
Yeah.
you're maybe flatter
I
terrain or
think,
something.
yeah, I think if you live in flat terrain, it's fine. But I think, and you do the same routes all the time, and you go to the same criterium race every week, I think one by is plausible. I think in the World Tour, they are legitimately changing chainring sizes every single day, which also means a new chain length. And in some cases, changing derailleur and cassette as well. I think looking at what Campagnolo has done, which is also very similar to what like SRAM Road offers, I think that like 1136 cassette is too limited in range for a really effective one by setup. Yeah, it just doesn't have that total gear range that I would want in a road bike. Yeah, and I've been here. I've like, yeah, SRAM did this 10 to 36 tooth years and years ago and back in 11 speed, and I found it too limiting then, and I still find it too limiting.
That was my initial reaction when I seen the combination that was available. Like I've this the S5 here has a 50 chainring and a 1044 cassette, and that is on both sides the sort of bare minimum range that you need.
Yeah. Yep.
For where I ride.
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
getting I'm getting by just fine, but it's just fine. It's not, if it was a 40, yeah, it wouldn't be working.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for me, like in my current fitness, which is not great, I would probably want on a road bike, I'd want like not quite 1-to-1 gearing, but almost that. So like a 48 tooth chainring with a 46 tooth cassette would probably do me quite well. But then at the opposite end of things, you then that smaller chainring is limiting your top end speed. So yeah, I think it is a compromise, and yeah, I still think the total range is still, you know, not perfect given where modern road drivetrains have settled with much wider range cassettes and all that. So it is a
I do though,
compromise.
like at times have to like check myself and go, how much of an issue is this for the regular rider? I'm looking at everything through a performance lens. I'm also, as we've discussed last week, in this like luxury position where I can access various different options. Kind of the closest thing to an independent pro rider you're gonna find. And how much these issues that I get hung up on, and I think rightly so. But how much of an issue are they for like regular riders? Yeah, I'm always having to try to consider that.
Yeah, I think there are issues, and I think that probably brings us to Campagnolo Super Record X, which kind of solves for these issues, that you can actually put this wider range derailleur and cassette onto a road bike as well as a gravel bike. And so you could put Super Record X onto a road bike with its 10 to 48 tooth cassette. And straight away we've sort of answered the woes that we're talking about here, as far as limitations
you
of
fix
one
one problem though, and you just add in a few others, don't you?
What are the other issues?
I mean, a 1044 here at the moment, the jumps are just all right.
Yeah, okay.
But 1048, I don't know the individual breakdown of the sprockets in that cassette at the moment, but
Yeah, I've
like
got that in the article.
there have to be jumps in there somewhere. Like,
Yep. Yeah, so that's the thing. Like it I guess it comes back to how you ride a road bike, right? Like if you
no, it comes back to we need 14 speed.
Yeah. I just hope we just skip straight to 15. But I really don't. 13's enough. 12 was enough. Anyway. We're at 13 now. Yeah, so Super Record X, I think it's probably the main thing for me here is like a lot of the technology we've seen before from Campagnolo. They're using like their N3W freewheel or freehub for these cassettes. That's the same as Eka. Yeah, so it's the same chain as before, and yeah, obviously we're using the shifters and brakes that we've seen already from Super Record earlier this year. There is a new crank, which is got a steel spindle versus the titanium spindle of the road crank. It's a little bit wider as well. There's chainrings to match with it from 38 tooth and up. But yeah, I think the main thing here is that the main thing that stood out to me is that Campagnolo now has a one by drivetrain that competes against SRAM Red on the gravel, and Shimano does not.
Yeah, wild times.
Yeah.
But it's like, I've already had this thought during this conversation, and it's like right now you could legitimately find yourself in a situation where you're like considering Shimano or SRAM or Campagnolo for your premium gravel build, and Shimano isn't even in the equation.
No. Like if you're building up a high-end gravel bike and you want something light and it's sort of a performance-centric gravel bike, you want one by, you want a power meter, you want 165 mil cranks, you want a wide range cassette, you want it to be fairly light. Shimano's not in the equation at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, if you want Shimano, you're not getting a Shimano crank anymore. You're getting something else. And yeah, I mean, the reality is that GRX at the moment does stop at effectively an Ultegra level. And so, yeah, they're not, if you're looking at weights and all that, and you're trying to go as premium as you can, the Shimano stuff works wonderfully, but it's not quite there. And yes, you can use like XTR parts in the mix. You can use an XTR wireless derailleur now. You can use an XTR cassette. It gets you close, but still not quite the same thing.
Yeah. Like I don't know. I just don't think it should be on the consumer to go hacking around. And as much as we all enjoy doing that,
yeah,
Shimano just need a dedicated offering.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I do though find myself wondering, and I think the answer is yes. But has Campag targeted the right end of the market here? Like super record gravel, it just does seem a little bit plush, really, doesn't it? Like, you know, since eCar was announced in 2020, 5 years ago, everybody has been like, okay, but when's the EPS version coming? When's the electronic version of eCar coming? And eCar, I would have probably said, is maybe chorus level spec.
And quite a bit of aluminium in it. Yep.
Yeah, and so, you know, we're looking for that price point in a gravel, not that price point, but that spec level in a gravel electronic group set. But what we've got is ultra premium.
Yeah.
Presumably the ultra is yet to come.
Yeah. $3,900 for Super Record X 1x13 group set. That does not include the power meter. So yeah, I mean, this is very premium. But yeah, I mean, there is a market out there. I think it's probably worth noting though that it has to start somewhere, and I'd say it's every other drivetrain manufacturer has a history of starting at the top and then trickling down, and Campagnolo has basically admitted as much to me, saying, you know, they don't plan to only ever be like the Veblen sort of, you know, high-end goods brand. They really want to bring this technology down to lower price points, and they aim to do it in a good timeline.
I guess so. So the reason I'm asking that question though is because right now Shimano are out of the picture at this price point. They're competing against SRAM. SRAM have, like, in terms of local bike shops and easy access to equipment and that these days, and just like a presence in people's minds. Yeah, they're head and shoulders above Campagnolo, and so, you know, you're still going to rely on either a Campagnolo fan or someone who's out there advocating for Campagnolo. And in the absence of that strong dealer network that SRAM have now built, I wonder if the easier area to get some traction might have been on a price point offering.
Maybe.
But at the same time, I'm sure if Campag had done that, I'd be like, whoa, where's the super record?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, they can't win, but I think proving themselves at the high end, at, like, you know, where price no objects, if they can prove themselves here, then when they do trickle it down, I think people will be more willing and accepting of it. And, you know, having the likes of yourself say that this is my new favorite shifter is certainly going to help. So yeah, I mean, wishing them all the luck. They've certainly had a many rough years to get here. But dare I say, like, you know, I'm still waiting on my test group set to arrive at the time of recording this, but
I wish you had that, actually, because had this been a month ago and I hadn't yet ridden this Super Record Wireless, I'd have been less excited than I am. But having spent a month on it, it's by no means perfect, and again, I don't think I'd be choosing it to go racing. But if I was building a bike for bike riding's sake tomorrow, it would be very difficult to look past it right now if money was no object. And as such, then I'm quite excited by what the gravel offering is going to bring. And so, it would have been nice to, you've been promised a group set. It is coming. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on it.
Yeah, more to come on this one, but yeah, it's nice to see what feels like Campagnolo being back. So yeah, Ronan, Look have some new major Look pedals.
Yeah, they have their new Keo Blade Ceramic Vision and Keo 2 Max Vision pedals, which are basically Keos with a light built into a rear light built into the rear side of the pedal body.
So lighter but heavier.
Lightweight lights, but not lightweight pedals.
Gotcha.
20 grams per pedal. And They're claiming like high visible. They're claiming like a kilometer visible from up to a kilometer away. I'm gonna apply a pinch of salt to that claim. But the lights themselves add 20 grams to each pedal. They come with like a 40-hour battery life claim. IPX7 waterproofing in that, and then you can also
rechargeable.
USB-C rechargeable, and as I understand it, you can remove them, like say for a race day or something, you could pull the lights off and then put them back on for training.
You can also just buy the lights separately and get them to attach to like the latest generation of blade pedals if you've just got the pedals, which I think are V4 pedals. So yeah, some cool options there. I mean, the main thing here is based on biomotion, which is like, movement is more attention grabbing than something that is stationary. And I have to say I haven't used these pedals, but I have used other light up pedals. I've used some from Redshift that I had on my e-bike. And very rarely have I had so much like attention from motorists where they'd pull down the window and tell me how visible I was from when I was using those pedals. Like that was one of those times where people just wanted to tell me that they're like, wow, I could see you from so far away. And it's so great. What are those things? Don't normally get that sort of attention. So yeah, it's I think Look could probably onto something here, and dare I say people that are ride at odd hours or want the extra visibility and already on the platform. I mean, this could be quite a nice little system to look into.
I'm just surprised there's no aero claims attached to this. Like adding to the cord length of the pedal is bound to offer some sort of aero gains. They could have at least claimed, come on, with missed opportunity here.
So yeah, maybe one to pop in the wind tunnel and make that claim for them. Yeah, but anyway.
I mean, you've used the Redshift ones. Is there any the loss of functionality if you're like a real heel down pedal style, or?
I mean, the Redshift ones I used were actually a platform pedal, and it just made for a rather bulky platform. And I did have one or two scary moments of scraping the pedal through roundabouts and that sort of thing, just because the pedal was that much larger than what I was used to. Beyond that, not really. Like they actually function pretty well as a pedal. They function really well as lights, and at least in the case of Redshift, the lights are magnetically removable, and so you can charge them off the bike. Yeah, I was quite happy with them. These Look systems, I guess my question would be around like, how do you turn them on? How do you turn them off? Are they just movement based? Things like that sort of remains to be seen. Also, the Redshift ones actually had the light sort of integrated into the pedal body, whereas I do question with Look, how are they achieving the fact that you can remove them, but they're also on the backside of a clipless pedal. And so, maybe if you're faffing off a set of lights and looking for the pedal to clip in, you're flipping it around. Like, I guess that's another question I have, is like, how robust are these from like accidental missing the pedal?
I could imagine how you could easily knock them off pretty quickly.
Yeah. So yeah, some questions remain, but I'm sure we'll have answers to those in near time. And but yeah, I think it's a quite a neat product. And I have to say, like, I've been a bit negative on Look over recent years. I find, I think they had fallen down a little bit in terms of like repairability and serviceability, but along with this release, they recently brought in service kits where you can now buy like replacement axle units for their latest pedals as well. So if you do wear out the bearings but the bodies are still good, then there's options there. Perhaps still not the most serviceable of things, but at least more replacement parts are available than just like junking the old pedals. All right, last bit of news for the week is actually comes from something we covered a few weeks ago, where CSS, American manufacturer of carbon rims, they were using thermoplastic to manufacture carbon rims, and they had announced a rather sudden closure of their facility, meaning that the rims that they made for the likes of Chris King, as well as themselves under the Forge and Bond brand, would basically just be discontinued, and that warranties were null and void. So yeah, some news off the back of that. We've seen a bit of a flurry of brands stepping up and saying, warranties aren't null and void. We're just going to have them handled elsewhere. So yeah, top of the list, Chris King has just recently announced that their warranties will now be handled by Noble Wheels. So if you have one of these CSS carbon rims branded Chris King and you need a warranty, then Noble Wheels will help handle that. Meanwhile, Revel Wheels, they hadn't used the CSS rims for a little while, but their older wheels were using them. And so if you've got some of those older wheels with the thermoplastic rims, then Industry 9 will now handle those warranties. And then it's just cool to see, because Reynolds kind of took the opportunity, a bit of a PR stunt, and just said, any brand of CSS wheels, regardless of what you have, we'll just offer you like a crash replacement policy if you have any issues. So yeah, get onto a pair of Reynolds wheels, like the whole wheel set, for a good price point. So yeah, it's just nice to see brands sort of helping each other out, looking to look after customers correctly here. And yeah, I think certainly Reynolds, like if you did buy into a Forge and Bond wheel set and you ever need a warranty, then I'd say hit up Reynolds. And with that, I think it's time for a PSA. Yeah, Ronan, I think we need PSA music. Do you think anyone would be willing to help us with some PSA music?
I'm sure someone would. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're that way inclined, please shoot it through. tech@escapecollective.com. Send through a short snippet we can put into the podcast. We used to have a great one for the mechanics section, but at an old podcast that we had. But yeah.
I bet we could dig that out and stick it on, and nobody would know. Well, they might know now that we've highlighted on a podcast listened by many.
Anyway, PSA for this week is don't ignore your freehub buddy. So yeah, there's things inside of them, moving parts, and they need attention. But yeah, I guess to give more detail on this, I think it's one of the more ignored parts on a bike. I think it's a part in the bike that works really hard. It sits beneath your cassette. It allows you to freewheel. It allows you to drive. And it is also exposed to the elements. And anytime you degrease your chain with the wheel installed, you run degreaser through it. And yeah, so I think it's commonly ignored and commonly overlooked when people are doing basic services to bikes.
A listener who you may know, Dave, Bruce Dalton, he messaged after last week's conversation about chain waxing and how he'd just been able to pour hot water on something on the chain to clean it is like a time save also. And yeah, it's also a freehub saver if you're not pouring degreaser onto a chain, which is on your cassette, on your freehub, eating the bearings. I don't think freehubs are the most common. What did you say? The most overlooked?
One of the most. Yeah.
One of them. I don't think so, because they tend to get destroyed so quickly that they're replaced quite often, and so they're overlooked and ignored at the owner's expense, I think.
Yeah, I'd say often they're overlooked and ignored until they're like causing problems, like safety related issues. And I think
wobbling and
I think that proves that they're one of the most overlooked and ignored parts on a bike, because they are serviceable and a little bit
definitely. But my point is just that happens so often that they're then you're forced to not ignore them.
Yeah. So at the most basic level, I'd say this is why I recommend not degreasing your chain with the rear wheel in the bike. I always recommend removing the rear wheel. This is basically how pro race mechanics always wash bikes. They take the wheels out and put a dummy hub in, so they can degrease the chain on the bike, but without running the degreaser through the hub. And clean the cassette separately. I also think, just a lot of these freehub bodies these days are actually very easy to access. A lot of them will just pull off with the cassette still installed. And so, you can access them and clean out the grit and the dirt and the gummed up grease and put some new grease in there and put them back together within a few minutes. So, yeah, if you have no idea what you're doing though, just beware. There's always small parts in them, so just maybe read the manual related to your hub before you go pulling it apart. But yeah, and also if you do pull it apart, just know that the pieces inside are typically small and lightly sprung and very sensitive to the type of grease you use. So just make sure you're using a lightweight grease or whatever is recommended by the manufacturer. So, but yeah, I think that's the PSA. These pieces are often ignored, and personally, I open them up for every service I do.
We've hinted at it, but what does go wrong when freehub is ignored?
There's a few things. I mean, fundamentally, like it is what allows the bike to freewheel, and it's what allows the bike to drive and engage. And I'd say you get inconsistencies in that when you do ignore them. So sometimes you might get skips or groans or pops, or sometimes just a loss of drive or the inability to freewheel. But yeah, I guess the other thing is just like you get bearing wear, and so you'll get like play in the cassette. You'll get movement and noises that can be avoided. So there's a few things going on there. But in severe cases when they are ignored, though, I have seen them take out an entire rear hub with them. So what goes from being like a bad bearing that could have just been a bearing replacement ends up being like effectively a whole new hub and therefore a whole new wheel. So it's something that can be serviced easily, but I would not recommend ignoring it.
Have you any, like, I know this can differ, but general preventative measures that we can, regardless of your level of mechanicking competency, can do easily at home?
I would say some hubs are very easy, like a DT Swiss Star Ratchet I would rank as one of the easiest because you can often just pull it open and there's fewer pieces to go missing, and they locate into position quite easily. At the opposite end of the scale, like you do get some hubs that have multiple sprung poles that allow the thing to engage, and those poles can dislodge as you're opening the system up, and they can be a bit tricky to get into place.
Any tricks for getting them back into place? I've turned to using like a shifter cable or something that can wrap around and pull them all tight.
I mean, first and foremost, you need to get them back into their position before you put the freehub body back in place. And for that, I'd typically say you can often use like a very small flat blade screwdriver to sort of hold down the spring while you load them back into their carriers. And then often I very rarely need to use anything other than just like my fingers to push the freehub bodies back into place. You can sort of, as you turn them backwards, you can kind of click each pole into its position, and that'll let you engage the whole thing as you put it back in. Another trick is actually dental floss. You can wrap dental floss around the thing and then, sort of push it all back together with the dental floss holding all the poles down, and then pull out the dental floss. I've actually never needed to do that, but I have seen others do it.
I think it's one of the time trial disc wheels that I have that because of the whole construction, it's first of all an awkward one to get into place, and then because of the construction, you can't actually fit anything in there to you're definitely not getting fingers in there to help get the balls back into position.
Yeah. So some hubs are definitely problematic. Like there was an older generation of Zip that had a whole bunch of like tiny little magnets and stuff, and that was
complex,
a nuisance. So some hubs better than others, but an increasing number of hubs on the market are pretty easy to service, and so it's just a matter of like preventative maintenance would be opening them up, cleaning out the seal, cleaning out the the dirty grease, and then just applying a light amount of whatever is recommended to put back in there.
You've so far been talking just about the internals. I'm wondering about first of all, does greasing your through axle or greasing the splines on which the cassette sits, do those sorts of things help with protecting a free hub, or are those just...
No, I'd say they're unrelated. They're kind of often distant enough that it doesn't matter. For various reasons, I would always recommend greasing your through axle, and depending on what the free hub body is, I would typically recommend not greasing it. If it were a spline free hub body, I personally don't grease them. I know others do. But for like SRAM XD, I do grease them because there's a thread on that you don't want corroding. So there's a bit of variety there. But I think this is more related to like internals and keeping the seals on the outside clean, and then also keeping the poles and system clean. But But yeah, if you're unsure or you're nervous about the insides of your bike, then this is probably one for a bike mechanic, and just book the bike in for a service and ask them to service your hubs. But yeah, it's a good one to do.
All I heard you say was that if you're unsure about your insides, book a.
I might have said that. I meant if you're unsure about the insides of your bike, then yeah, see
Have
your
your
bike.
freehub inspected.
Yes, yep. So anyway, yeah, just remember there's a little hardworking component as part of your hub that needs your attention. That's the PSA. Ronan, I guess this is almost a PSA, but let's have a good.
I mean, there was a segue there. Had I not taken us down a somewhat needless rabbit hole, we could have said at the point that you mentioned manuals.
Yes.
How that gets us to this week's good thing.
Yes. A good thing is manuals, specifically brands that offer them. I'm sure you've come across this, Ronan, but there's an increasing number of brands that are doing this really well, that are offering quite detailed and useful technical manuals where, say you want to look up the torque of something, or the order that you need to assemble a stem in, or maybe the headset bearing size that your bike needs, so on. There are a number of brands that are doing this really well with good technical drawings, easy to find manuals that give you all the answers. And so Cervelo, Specialized, Trek, Ibis, Santa Cruz, I'd say, are all examples of brands that do this incredibly well. And that if it's not directly from their own website, you can sort of just Google Cervelo Aspero 5 dealer manual or service manual .pdf, and it'll first result is the answer.
Sometimes they're just buried. So you get a Google result, but it's just not obvious until you open the PDF, go through it. Is this the current bike, or is this the bike that I'm looking at? Or we need could be improved that way. But point taken.
Yeah, and I think brands like Specialized and Trek are increasingly doing better and better jobs of that. Like Specialized, for example, and I think Trek as well. They now on the product page for the bike will actually have a link to the PDF. So if you find the model of your bike in their archives, say you have a 2024 Specialized Epic, and you go to that exact bike in the same color you've got, you can actually find the PDF to download. And I really like that, and I think that's a good thing. I think consumers should be able to find the torque specs for their bikes, and independent bike shops that aren't a dealer for that specific bike, or perhaps didn't sell that customer that bike, should be able to find out how to service the thing. And I think, I kind of am increasingly annoyed by brands that take the stance that these sort of details should only be available to the dealer that sells the bike. I think that's increasingly dated and goes kind of against the whole right to repair and how many people are viewing their purchases these days.
Yeah, if you remember, it was 18 months or so ago, I covered that Bike Matrix software that was going to be available to, it was promising to try to sort of help with identifying compatible parts and that. But that is so often, even where these manuals typically exist, sometimes they're worded or presented in such a way that there's an assumed knowledge, and things specific size of bearings and that are just not directly referenced. And so you take up the manual, you spend the time to read it, and you still don't have the answer, or certain steps of a process are pretty vague on how they should be followed. And with bikes getting more and more complex, manuals are more and more important than they ever have been, and so easy access to them is sort of it's pretty much a must at this point. In fact, we should probably call it in a review if they aren't up to scratch. But I think it needs to go a step further. There should really be just a QR code somewhere on the bike. Scan with your phone camera, takes you directly to the manual, rather than sorting through model years and model names and this, that, and the other.
Yeah, and a small number of products are starting to do that. I'd say it's still very early days, but it just makes so much sense to do that. At the opposite end of the scale, we do still have some brands that are very clearly restricting information just for their dealers, and even the information that I've seen available to dealers is sort of a bit crummy. And unfortunately, I'd put Giant on that list. The service manuals I've seen from them are dealer only. You can't download them as a consumer, and even when you do get access to them, you're like, I don't have the answer I need. So yeah, I'd say Mavic as well is probably another brand that historically have always had a dealer login for their technical service manuals, like the step-by-step how to replace a spoke or how to service a hub. And they're still seemingly that way. Like they still limit access to those service manuals unless you're in the industry. And yeah, I just think in day and age where more and more brands are just giving you very clear, easy to follow step-by-step guides on how to service a product. Not everyone has the tools or not everyone has the time or the ability to do it, but you can at least see how it's done. It just surprises me that some brands are still taking the stance to.
I mean, like parts of this aren't even about servicing. They're like, you want to take your bike on a plane. It's got a B&A headset. How does this assemble? From which you can establish how to disassemble it. And the more important part there is like, how does it go back together in the right order again? And which bolts do you torque up and in which order?
Yep.
Which anybody should have access to if they own the bike.
Yes, absolutely.
I think the automotive industry has gone in the same direction, because I remember being a kid in like motor factors and seeing like these big hardback books on like a Renault 5, and it was effectively a manual how to do everything about it. But you can't do any of that stuff anymore in your own car. You have to you void your warranty. If you do, you have to have a stamped service record. But there's no reason that the bike industry couldn't be providing such manuals, and some do.
And so with e-bikes, I think the bike industry is slowly heading toward more that automotive industry where it's like dealer only service, and your motor needs its service interval checked off in order to maintain your warranty, and that can only be done by a licensed dealer, and so on. But I still think when it comes to the regular bicycle that you buy, you should be able to, you should know what torque to do up bolts to, and you should know, what headset bearings it needs and all these other things. And in the case of like a mountain bike full suspension, you should be able to find out how to remove the rear shock to send it away for service, and how to if you were to pull apart the linkage, what orientation those spaces need to go in. All of that information should be pretty readily available to everyone, and most brands are really good at that. And but yeah, I think there's just still room for improvement, but for now I'm going to say it's a good thing that the brands that are good at it are doing the right thing, and more of that, please.
Or we could just keep guessing, and some people will inevitably break things and then have to buy new bikes. Which is maybe the end goal. Let's put our 10 hats on for a second here. And anyway.
All right. I think we might get into the member only section where we answer member questions in our Ask a Wrench section.
Let's go. Well, I'll leave you here. You'll go join Zach.
I will. Yes, I've got a plane to catch. I'm going to should be with him in 12 hours.
He can dial in. You don't need to go traveling. This is 2025. He can dial in. You don't need to travel.
Oh, okay. So I'm not going to Boulder?
No, I don't. Oh, it's no need, man. It's only ask. I know it's great and it's worth paying for, and it's one of the reasons you should be an Escape Collective member, but it's not worth you flying to Boulder.
This will save me a lot of time. I've been making this flight every week for the last.
And so if you want to save Dave from having to go to Boulder, and you want to make sure that this podcast sticks around, you need to become a member.
Yeah. All right. Let's head over to Ask a Wrench. Thank you, Ronan.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks to Will Jones of Red Bricks Media for the editing and mixing of this episode.